Hello, everyone. Hello. Can you hear me?
Good morning. We can hear you. Yes, good morning. Sound check, sound check.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining. Yes, morning, everybody. We're just admitting more and more people to the meeting. A lot of people are coming in, but thanks for joining. We appreciate you being with us this morning. We'll be with you in a few seconds. Oh, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. Been looking forward to seeing all of you and doing this great event today, focusing on Africa. And today is the 14th of March, 2024. My name is Harry, and we're just busy still admitting some more people into the session. There are still more colleagues coming in. But while we're doing that, let's do a little bit housekeeping. As you might have known, Zoom has got the Zoom chat room facility. You're welcome to use the chat room facility to greet each other, share contact details, and ask questions to the panelists when we going to have the panel discussion or questions and answers at the end of the event. We will also look in the chat room whether there might be questions which the panelists haven't answered yet at the time. But also, during the questions and answer session, you will be granted opportunity to unmute yourself, and when recognized, you will be able to ask questions to the panelists. So that will also be allowed. Ladies and gents, yes, please keep yourselves on mute. You know the thing. Nowadays, we're all used to the virtual meetings. So please keep yourselves on mute. Otherwise, I'll have to mute you to protect us from some background noises. Ladies and gents, let's have a look then at our big program for today. So there we are, Focus on Africa, 14th of March 2024. And you can see we have 4 presenters, very powerful presenters. And yeah, we're going to learn a lot today. You can see we've got Mr. John Rocha from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. We've got Mr. Kabelo Haas. He's from CTRAC, Business Development in Africa and Middle East. We've got also Mr. Eugene van Niekerk from CTRAC, a Product Solutions Executive, and Ms. Lebo Letsohalo, who is the Chief Executive Officer of SingPoint and African Women Supply Chain Association. So we're very thankful and for them, spending some time with us and sharing some knowledge. Ladies and gents, we all noticed that the events are complementary. So obviously we have valued sponsors of the Transport Forum and industry associates. So let's quickly give them some recognition for helping us out today. But I want to sensitize you, and we're going to have some fun. You see, they are all our sponsors. And what we're going to do is you have to listen carefully when I talk about our sponsors and associates, because after that, we're going to ask questions. There's a quiz. And then we've got 2 Bluetooth headphones, also including an FM radio built in, to the value of more than 400 rands each. And 2 of you guys might be lucky to win this one of these Bluetooth headphones. So it's very nice prizes. So what we're going to do after I've told you about our sponsors and so on, we're going to ask 2 questions. And the first person answering the question right will be the winner of that prize. And we will then have the prize couriered to you. Unfortunately, I can only do this for South African residents. But yeah, so lots of fun every time we do this. So let's then have a look. We've got formal industry associates to the Transport Forum. You can see there, and we're quickly going to run through all of them. There are obviously many other industry associates involved as well, but these are in a formal agreement with the Transport Forum. And let's have a look at some of them. So here's actually a new association joining us. They're known as the Multimodal Inland Port Association. They're in the process of joining the Transport Forum, and we're looking forward to hearing more about them. They're also going to do their launch with the Transport Forum. So very excited having them on board. Thank you very much, MIPA. We've got the South African Express Parcel Association. Right, this is the representative body of the voice and voice of the express delivery industry in South Africa. Thank you very much, SAPA. We've got SABOA, the South African bus and coach industry. They played a vital role in the social and economic development of our country. Thank you very much, SABOA, for your kind support. The South African Association of Freight Forwarders, you can see already established in 1921, a national association with members throughout the Republic of South Africa, obviously representing the freight forwarding industry. Thank you very much, SAF, for your kind support. You've got a Road Freight Association that say, without trucks, South Africa stops. So yeah, thank you very much, RFA, for your great support. We've got the African Rail Industry Association, the ARIA. They see their vision is to have a world-class road infrastructure across Africa. The mission is to advocate for the road industry and third-party access to the country's rail network. Thank you very much, ARIA. Safer Stops Association, uniting minds, sharing vision and resources, uplifting well-being, boosting road safety for South Africa's commercial drivers. Thank you very much, Safer Stops Association. And then the African Women in Supply Chain Association, Lebo Letsohalo is heading this up. Thank you very much, Lebo, also for your kind support. She's also going to do a presentation today and might tell you a little bit more about the WISCA as well. Thank you very much, Lebo. We've also got formal media partners with the Transport Forum. Obviously, there are many more, as I said, but these are in a formal agreement. So we've got Freight News. Let's start here with Focus on Transport and Logistics, also recently joined the Transport Forum. Right, it's the African leading transport and logistics magazine, a trusted media partner for over 45 years. Thank you very much, Focus on Transport and Logistics. We've got Freight News, all about logistics news and features for import and export, decision makers, you need to subscribe to these magazines, ladies and gents. It's not expensive, and then you get up to date on what's happening. Right, then we've got the Railways Africa magazine. Railways Africa is the African Continent Specialist Trade Technical Business-to-Business online publication covering all aspects of the rail sector. You can see they're published weekly online. Thank you very much, Railways Africa. We've got Creamer Media's engineering news. They have actually shared the news update for us with the past week.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Engineering News and Mining Weekly magazine, published on Friday, 15 March 2024. In this week's cover article, Engineering News and Mining Weekly writer Sabrina Jardim unpacks the economic and geopolitical uncertainty that's supporting strong gold demand and prices. Amid economic uncertainties and rising inflation, total gold demand, including over-the-counter demand, reached a new record in 2023, thereby supporting the highest yearly average gold price, according to the World Gold Council's most recent Gold Demand Trends report. The Engineering News features focus on Water Week, where campaigns can help maximize water recovery. Chemicals and petrochemicals, where a company invests in driver and vehicle management systems. And food and beverage, where there's increased energy efficiency demand in the growing food and beverage industry. The Mining Weekly features focus on underground mining, where intelligent drilling solutions advance underground capabilities. This week's business leader is Fatima Joyce Pakari, the CEO of PF Africa Mining. And as this week's cartoon shows, warnings of a gas day zero in 2026 are alarming, but not new. All eyes are now on the government-led task team set up to develop a joint strategy and whether that strategy will be sufficient to ensure a so-called seamless transition to non-Sasol gas. We hope you enjoyed this week's edition of Creamer Media's Engineering News and Mining Weekly. Be sure to subscribe to the magazine that offers you in-depth news about developments in the real economy by emailing subscriptions at engineeringnews.co.za. Happy reading and see you next time.
Thank you, Engineering News, for that news update. Ladies and gents, we're blessed in having a platinum sponsor with the Transport Forum actually being part of us since inception. So they've also shared a great video of us. Thank you, C-Track. Let's have a look at the video.
A lot has changed in the 4 decades that we've been keeping vehicles and business equipment safe and always visible. And we've learned a thing or two along the way. That's why our focus is firmly on the future. A future that goes beyond just tracking and reporting, challenging the status quo, and exploring what the power of technology combined with AI can unlock for your business. Because talking did not earn us the reputation of being the leader in fleet telematics solutions. Pushing boundaries with constant innovation did, and putting our customers first by asking, what if, what's next, and what's possible? For the power of foresight over hindsight to plan ahead and make smarter decisions. What if you could predict the optimal route to increase on-time deliveries and significantly reduce long-term maintenance? What if you could predict the best tractor speed on the day to reduce wasted spray and cover more ground with precision? Or if something as trivial as a few centimeters could predict the difference between maximum efficiency or maximum risk? Because in our world, and likely in yours too, having insights that can be used as foresight with a crystal clear view of the future is the only thing that matters to remain ahead for better control, better efficiencies, and better overall performance. It's the telematics and AI solution that goes beyond tracking and reporting. Step into the future with Crystal by C-Track and experience the power to predict.
Thank you very much, C-Track, for this great product and your platinum sponsorship. Ladies and gents, University of Johannesburg Department of Transport and Supply Chain Management has also been part of the Transport Forum since inception. Been lots of work working together closely. So we thank you, UJ, for your kind support and gold sponsorship. Kuba, transforming ticketing. Kuba is part of the ICM Mobility Group, which enables public and private transport to move into the digital area. You can see they do journey planning, smart ticketing, streamlining electronic payment, shaping the digital transformation of the mobility sector. Thank you very much, Kuba, for your gold sponsorship. Standard Bank, over 160 years of experience. Let's have a look at their video. Just a YouTube video. Let me just try and get this going. For some reason, this video doesn't want to play this morning. I'll try once again. Right. Now, well, Standard Bank's been part of also with us for many years. Thank you very much, Standard Bank. Next time I'll surely play that video for you. Don't know why it doesn't want to play this morning. You've got Control Fleet, also recently joined the Transport Forum as a gold sponsor. Let's have a look at their video.
At Control Fleet, innovation is at the heart of every decision we make. We execute like never before. Our features include planning, scheduling, driver application, and our value proposition is continuous value and execution for you. We love logistics and transport operations, our clients, and our aim is to provide them with new age technology, innovate their business, and take them to the future.
Thank you, Control Fleet. Ladies and gents, we've got Global Trade Solution, GTS, innovative solutions transforming global supply chain. You can see they do consulting and strategy, software solutions, and specialized services. Obviously, all these sponsors, ladies and gents, you'll find the links on the Transport Forum website to contact these great companies. Bid Air Cargo, they've also shared a great video with us, gold sponsor of the Transport Forum.
In the world of express freight, there's one name that stands above the rest: Bid Air Cargo. Our airport-to-airport line haul service is the backbone of South Africa's express freight industry. At Bid Air Cargo, we don't just deliver cargo. We go the extra mile to ensure a seamless and efficient experience in South Africa. With our unwavering commitment to excellence and improved technology, we handle your cargo with utmost care and deliver it on time, every time. Our dedication to service excellence is what sets us apart. We live by our core values of service excellence, mutual respect, integrity, and accountability. When you choose Bid Air Cargo, you're choosing a partner that takes pride in going above and beyond for your freight needs. From pharmaceuticals to perishable goods, automotive parts to live animal transportation, we handle a diverse range of commodities. Our attention to detail and precision ensure that your cargo arrives in perfect condition, no matter what it is. Our dedicated teams work tirelessly to guarantee the safety and efficient transport of your cargo. We leave no stone unturned to ensure your freight arrives at its destination intact and on time. With our advanced track and trace system, you can monitor your shipments in real time. Stay informed about the whereabouts of your cargo with just a few clicks. Our goal is to provide you with peace of mind and complete transparency throughout the entire journey. We understand that time is of the essence for our valued customers. That's why we offer a user-friendly online portal that simplifies the documentation process. Obtain quotations and create e-waybills with ease, saving you valuable time and effort. Whether you have a small package or a large shipment, Bid Air Cargo handles it all with equal care and precision. Our ISO certification is a testament to our commitment to quality and professionalism. We don't just excel in domestic express freight, we also cater to your international cargo needs. No matter the size of your business, Whether you're a small enterprise or a multinational corporation, you can trust us to handle your cargo with the same level of dedication and attention to detail. Connect with us today and discover the difference our innovative technology, seamless tracking, and customer-orientated approach will make to your operation. Bid Air Cargo. Same-day express every day, overnight express every night.
Thank you, Air Cargo, for your gold sponsorship. Right, ladies and gents, with Zutari. Zutari, a great organization, consulting engineers. They've been part of the Transfer Forum for many years as a gold sponsor. You can see their slogan is Impact Engineered. So definitely, Zutari, we take notice. And thank you very much for your great support and also mentoring myself. We really appreciate that. We've got Unitron Supply Chain Solutions, ladies and gents. Now, Unitrons, you can see they talk about innovation, expertise delivered, the leading provider of integrated transportation, warehousing, and supply chain-based services to customers with a variety of needs, offering bespoke value propositions in each segment. Thank you very much, Unitrons. JSE Auditors, certification, compliance, all-in-one solution. You can see there is SANIS, accredited certification body providing internationally recognized certifications. It's so important, especially nowadays when one needs to, self-regulation is such an important thing. And you can see they're also involved in the road transport management system for self-regulation as well. So it's a good idea to contact JSE Auditors in terms of your certification, very important. Right, we've got EasyClear. EasyClear, you can see they've got software solutions for customs clearing, freight forwarding, and logistics providers covering air, sea, road, and rail. Thank you very much, EasyClear, for your gold sponsorship. You've got a Ticket Pro group. They actually got two brands with the Transport Forum. This one is their online booking tool. You can see it's an online corporate traveling booking tool with everything you need and nothing you don't want. Very convenient, online booking tool. You can see no contracts, no hidden fees, just good business with straightforward, fair pricing. So definitely worth your while to find out more about Ticket Pro Travel. They also have the Ticket Pro Smart Tab solution. You can see it includes key features like comprehensive route management, flexible passenger payment methods, flexible route and fare product setup, shift and dispatch management, cashier system, inspection tools, and comprehensive management information system reports. Thank you very much, Ticket Pro, for your great gold sponsorship. So ladies and gentlemen, those are our associates and our sponsors, and we really appreciate their great support, making the Transport Forum actually possible, isn't it? Without them, and obviously, guys, without your support and attendance and participation in the Transport Forum wouldn't be possible. Just for interesting sake, this month is the Transport Forum's birthday month. We're now 17 years old in this current format. So yeah, I think today is the 250th Transport Forum event. So that's great. And we're still looking forward for many years being blessed with these events. So I would like then to give you opportunity to win a prize. And as I said, that was all about winning a wireless Bluetooth earphones with a FM radio included. And so I'm going to ask you two questions because we've got two prizes, about our sponsors. And the first person answering the question right will be the winner and will have the prize couriered to that person. So it will be all about these associates and sponsors, our questions. Let me just get my screen sorted this side, and I'll be with you in a second. I just want to open up. So what you're going to do is go to your chat room, and I'm keeping an eye on this chat room, and the first person answering the question right in the chat room will be the winner of the prize. Right, lots of fun. So here comes the first question. Which sponsor has the slogan Impact Engineered? There we go. Letlo Manolo Kari. Congratulations. You're the winner of this first prize. So I'm just making a note here. Right, congratulations, Letlo Konolo. Now we're going to do the second one. And here comes the second question. Which magazine covers all aspects of the rail sector? There we go, Frank Espeling. Frank, you're the winner of this one. Railways Africa magazine. Congratulations, Frank. Just making notes here. So congratulations to our winners. We will have the prizes couriered to you as soon as possible. We'll approach you for your delivery address and so on. So congratulations to our winners for those two prizes. Ladies and gents, now it's the reminder also for our business directory, the Transport Forum Business Directory. This business directory, you can see it's an online business directory, giving you opportunity to have your company listed for only 450 rands per annum. And it's been outsourced as a BEE initiative to Olga Mashilu from Boling Bontle Consultancy. She obviously invoices you straight, and she will help you to get your company listed. You will all receive email after this event as well to, indicate give us feedback on the event, and then also to indicate whether you want Olga to give you a call, or you can take a picture of your screen now and you can take note of Olga's telephone number there. You're welcome to contact her directly. I just realized that Go Metro, the company Go Metro, actually joined us as a sponsor as well, and I omitted to include them in our slides. So Go Metro, please forgive me, but I want to recognize Go Metro, who's just joined the Transport Forum as well as a gold sponsor. And thank you very much for your kind sponsorship. We will definitely include you in our slide deck, but the branding is on our website and all over. So thank you very much, Go Metro, for your sponsorship as well. Ladies and gents, so the business directory, you can contact Olga then to give you some recognition through the business directory. If they think about the Transport Forum's website and all the presentations presented over all these past years, there are more than 900 presentations that you can download complimentary. So great, powerful knowledge base. It's very popular on our web as well. And this website, you can see, is with more than 37,000 unique visitors, hitting more than 2 million each month on our website. And so if you want to access those presentations, ladies and gents, you will need to subscribe as a subscriber to the Transport Forum website. The only reason we're doing this is to obtain your email address to keep you posted on our events. That's the deal, according to our POPI Act, our POPI policy rather. So to the left of your screen, should you go to our website, you will find a username and password. You should log in. Or if you haven't got an account yet, you go to user menu, you click on sign up, and we'll take you through a simple little registration process to register and to access all this great content. So once you've logged in, then you'll find this screen, Transport Forum. You go to events, you select downloads. Once you selected downloads, then you will see there's two options how you can actually search for a presentation. You can see the top field, find by title or description. So you can go to that field and you can type in any title or a person's name or whatever. So for example, you type in logistics and you hit search, it will find all the presentations related to what you've typed in that field. In other words, all the presentations rendered over the past 17 years. if you go to category, you can select the day's date of the event, and then you can hit search, and it will take you, take you to the presentations presented on that day. So that is actually great. Ladies and gents, yes, so that takes us now back to our program for today. And that is, as I said, we're talking about the focus on Africa, the 14th of March, 2024. And without further ado, I want to introduce you to Mr. John Rocha. He's the Chief Director of Africa Bilateral Economic Relations, the trade branch of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. He's going to talk about the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, opportunities for the transport sector. Thank you very much, John. Just scanning here through the names. I don't see John online yet. Maybe he's running a bit late. Just hopefully he's fine. Let's give him just a second or two and see if he pitches. John just contacted me. He's having a struggle to get into Zoom, so just bear with us. I will have him for you online in a second. Hi, John. It's funny you don't have the link. I've resent it this morning again to you. Otherwise, you can maybe re-register. Can't you see my email I sent out this morning reminding you to attend the Transport Forum? Oh my gosh, John. What we could do is, can I ask somebody else to present in the meantime, and then maybe you present next or after 2 presentations or so, give you time to recover and get the link. That would be, let me see, at about 10:20 then. Okay. Yeah. The email I sent this morning, there's a link you can click to re-register. Can you kindly try that and get a new link? Yeah, I think there's okay. Let me just get the next presenter going, and then I'll back with you, John. Okay, thank you. Ladies and gents, you heard the discussion. John has got a problem to get into the session, but he's also got a very bad cough. The moment he speaks, he starts coughing, so he's sick. But he said he will try to present at 10:20. Let me hear Mr. Kabelo Haas. Are you perhaps available to do your presentation at this moment?
Yes, I am, Henry.
Okay, let me stop sharing here so that you can share your presentation. So Kabelo Haas, he's the Business Development Manager, Africa and Middle East, CTRAC. He's going to talk about the African market evolution. Thank you, Kabelo. Let me stop sharing this slide.
Thanks, Harry. Let me know when you can see the screen.
We can hear you, but we can't see you. It's coming through. Yes, we can see. You can continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me greet everybody. Good morning. And Henry, let me thank you for the opportunity and obviously the Transport Forum as well. It's a pleasure for someone like me to actually share my experiences within the continent that spans over 15 years plus. And obviously in business development, in commercial sales, supply chain, largely so within African continent. I'm with CTRAC. I'm the head of business development, managing Africa and the Middle East. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to take you through this morning is pretty much 6 agenda points. Harry, I'm struggling to change the screen. It's frozen actually. Is it flipping on your side? Is it flipping on your side?
And
Here we go. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to take you through 6 agenda points, obviously within the time frame that I've been given, 25 minutes. Should be sufficient really to discuss each of the points here. Starting obviously with macroeconomic landscape on the continent and all the way to really the basics of really accessing the African markets. Let's just dive into it. So the first one here is to really share what we have. What's happening here? Okay, it's really sharing performances of the African continent, looking pretty much in the last 5 years from 2020 to 2024. We're not going to focus much obviously on 2020 because it was a COVID year. So if you look at 2024, what we can take from it is that East Africa is the highest projected GDP, which is sort of positive, and obviously followed by Central Africa at 4.2%. However, that's obviously on a decline from 4.3 2023. I think what to note as well is Southern Africa being on an upward trend from 2.3 to 2.8, and obviously West Africa from 4.1 to 4.3. So for emerging markets, ladies and gentlemen, this is not entirely great, but it's not bad as well. There's a lot that we can take from a continent that's been coming from COVID and obviously from where the rest of the world pretty much sources natural resources from and other sort of skills as well. Right, so where we do a lot of business in the forum would be obviously Southern African region. So I just want to obviously drill it down to Southern and have a closer sort of focus. You will see here, I think there's 3 areas of focus. So the first one being inflation rate. So you'd see that Angola, DRC, Malawi, and Zambia have pretty much the highest inflation rates within the continent. At this rate, it would be deemed unsustainable for the long term. And I think what's sort of impacting or affecting on the positive growth on the GDP in Southern, you look at the DRC at 6.6 and 4.59, 2023, 2024. Mozambique, Namibia, and Zambia have a very strong projection as far as GDP performance and growth projection for this year as is concerned. And then I think what's worrying and makes it a bit difficult to do business in these 4 countries would be the exchange rate to the dollar. And Malawi and Zimbabwe being the highest at 3,300 and Malawi being second. So you can imagine doing business in these 2 countries, or actually all 3 of them, including Mozambique as well, with local currency having to import using the dollars. So I think what's important for businesses is the decision to hedge, number one, and to make sure at least that you sell in the same currency. In this case, could be dollars if you can afford to. Obviously, you can do that without having local operations. But if you do have local operations, you're going to have to find ways of making sure that you hedge against this high exchange rate and volatile rates that you find in these countries. All right, so I thought I should focus on these 4 verticals or 4 sectors of really that enhances growth within the African continent. Now, nothing has really pretty much changed. So mining leading obviously growth within the continent. Oil and gas, infrastructure, and manufacturing as well. But mining obviously being in the forefront. I think what's here to note would be the emergence of the discovery of cobalt in Zimbabwe. Cobalt is a special sort of natural resource, obviously used, as you'd all know, in cell phones. Particularly, exported a lot into the US for Apple and the East as well for guys like Huawei and Samsung. It should obviously benefit Zimbabwe one way or the other. And I think something else to note as well would be from an oil and gas perspective. Nigeria maintains their strong position in being the leading and the biggest, having the biggest oil refineries in the continent, having a contribution of about 27% of the entire oil contribution in the continent. So I'm going to drill down slightly on the statistics, and obviously starting with mining, and I'm dividing it sub-regions. So you look at Southern Africa, still very strong. Southern Africa, the DRC as being part of Southern, contributing about 51% of the entire, mining resources contribution. And not much is happening from East Africa, really. I think Tanzania is leading as far as mining is concerned. And, West Africa has been very strong, and they keep on strengthening their position as far as mining is concerned. And North Africa contributing about 15%. I think what's fascinating for me as a slide would be from an agriculture perspective. On the left, ladies and gents, you're pretty much seeing the percentage of farmland in these countries, obviously being led by Burundi, in the 80s as far as land contribution, land percentage of farming is concerned. And the last one being Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, almost 70%. But obviously, you look at South Africa here, almost 3% of land is designated to farming, which is quite interesting if you look at the graph on the right. If you look at the contribution to the GDP percentage country, Sierra Leone is pretty much leading, followed by Ethiopia. But I think for me, the interesting sort of comparison or correlation came from Burundi on both sides. So Burundi has pretty much, the biggest share of land, and yet they contribute about 27% to the GDP from farming activities. And again, South Africa being in the top 4 yet not featuring here shows you how strong South Africa is in other sort of sectors that are key and core to the economy. Obviously, we would know mining sort of would lead that, and tourism will be closely second. But this, ladies and gents, pretty much gives you a breakdown of the countries that are really mining focused in terms of land allocation, and those that are really leveraging that. Excuse me, and their economies are sort of dependent on farming sort of activities. All right, so I thought maybe I should dwell a little more in terms of the shift that has happened over the years in Africa. So you'd see the neo-colonialism approach to the continent on the rise. A good case in point for me here would be China, who's pretty much has made their presence in Africa felt, as we would all be aware. They're obviously driven by the Chinese investment capital. So wherever they see an opportunity to invest in Africa in exchange of either a share or a national resource as collateral, they take on that opportunity. And obviously they've been gaining traction in terms of their power, economic power, and political power as well within the continent. To many, it's worrying. To my friend who simply said to me, hey, at least, it's a trade-off and that is above board. So we pretty much, if there's any failure, is by, African leaders. For those that are very optimistic, they look at it on a positive note and say that, our infrastructure is improving. Therefore, it should make it easy for trade to happen within countries, within the African continent. So it's interesting to hear a whole lot of perspective as far as neo-colonialism as a subject is concerned. I think the second one that has happened over the past 3 years is coups that we've been experiencing, predominantly in the Francophone African countries. There's about 7 to 8 African countries that have pretty much been experiencing coups in the last 3 years. It's Gabon, Niger, Burkina Faso, Guinea, Chad, Mali, and Cameroon. So what's interesting is all of them are members of ECOWAS, which is the Economic Community of West African States. And obviously, the coups have really destabilized ECOWAS, resulting to 3 members, affiliate members, terminating their membership with ECOWAS, which is, by the way, perceived to be controlled from France. And whether that is true or not, I suppose the proof is in the pudding. I would agree with that sort of narrative that it was controlled by the French. However, the coups have now changed the landscape in terms of doing business. Where are the influences as far as decision-making in the countries are concerned is coming from? There's a strong belief that Russia is quite involved. There's a strong belief that, trading within these countries would then obviously be moved away from the French and the West, if you may, and obviously strong allies coming a lot from the BRICS affiliated members, predominantly Russia. We've seen the emergence of Turkish business communities in Mozambique. Matter of fact, they've taken over the construction sector in Mozambique. Quite interestingly, a former colleague of mine, said that, hey, these days to do business in Mozambique, you gotta be at least Turkish speaking to be able to maneuver around. So is it a new trend? It's part of, I suppose, neocolonialism, using the investment power that one has to pretty much, take on a market and make sure that you dominate the market, including growing your population as well. So we've seen Turkey doing that in Mozambique. And again, obviously, I think there's no denying that globalization has impacted on local industry. Although there's so many great things about globalization, the world becoming smaller, easy access to markets, easy access to products, being able to import at a reasonable time in terms of transit time. But there's also been, unfortunately, the cons as far as, Africa is concerned, and pretty much from an imbalance from a trade perspective. So it's going to benefit you, globalization, when there's a fair amount of balance of you exporting your skill to those who's going to need it, and obviously you importing from the excess markets that you have. And of course, because of the imbalance and because of everything being so accessible, it's affecting, the local or domestic jobs, unfortunately. And it's something, obviously, our gentleman who's running late from the DTI can obviously expand on. But we've seen also the termination of the bilateral trade agreement with Spain by the South African government, obviously impacting on some of the local policies. As a result, they're pretty much reviewing all the bilateral agreements that we have to make sure that local policy could sort of take precedence. And lastly, there's growing interest and investment by obviously Middle East countries into Africa, and I'm going to talk about it a bit later. We've seen obviously, the prominence of the Saudis quite late. We've been seeing the prominence of the UAE in the last sort of 15 to 20 years, and their dominance in some of the sectors in the world, including sports, quite interestingly. So we've seen quite a number of key investment into sort of core sectors within our economies happening within Africa. And I think if I may go back and talk about what China has done, actually, there's an organization, a Chinese organization in South Africa, that is pretty much investing in the farming space. So what's been happening is the business has been approaching farmers, really large-scale farmers, to ensure that they secure their food being obviously China as a country, by investing through giving them seed for free for a percentage of the harvest, right? So it's a win-win situation if you ask me. So a farmer could not say or cannot say no to somebody who's willing to pretty much plow for free for them, and obviously for a percentage of a return from the harvest. From what I hear, it's about 30%. So the issue with that could be the spread and the buy-in from farmers, unfortunately. And as a result, it will just benefit the two parties, being obviously the Chinese government through this organization, and obviously the farmers that partake in such deals. It's actually an awesome deal for them. But is it good for us as a country to pretty much compromise food security through such trades. It would be interesting to hear it from, if there's anybody from government or who knows as far as that is concerned. All right, so I think what's interesting and more relevant, obviously to this platform would be the supply chain alternatives that we're seeing to the Durban port. We've seen some interesting sort of investments. So there's about a 360 million investment into the Lobito corridor by the USA. Lobito, ladies and gentlemen, is a corridor that connects Zambia and the DRC through the Angolan port, exporting to the US. Right, so that's obviously one of the measures that's been put in place. This project is quite prioritized, and I believe it's moving at a very rapid pace. We've seen an investment as well made by DP World, which again is UAE owned. DP World, ladies and gents, is a company that took over Imperial. I'm sure most of you would know that. The investment into a port, a Maputo port, for expansion. So obviously, this is again another alternative to ensure that trade is not held to ransom by two things: one, congested Durban port, and again, obviously, the delay in getting shipments out and in, and obviously the crime that we're facing on the road, on the N3, and unfortunately unrest that we've seen, intentionally targeting truck drivers and the cargo and the looting. I suppose all of it, unfortunately, resulted to the chickens coming home to roast as far as these investments are concerned. What's been increasing actually is exporting via road freight into Mozambique through the border of Eswatini. So ever since obviously the improvement of the border in Eswatini into Maputo, we've seen a lot of trucks traveling obviously through that border, which is quite an interesting observation, talking to how packed Komati Port is and very congested, time wasting as well for business. Another corridor that's been invested in, which is the last one, would be the Trans-Kalahari corridor connecting Botswana and Namibia through Walvis Bay port. So, the whole corridor is to pretty much make sure that imports through Walvis Bay would smoothly move through Botswana into the country and to other countries as well. From what I hear, and which is quite interesting, is that it's pretty much going to operate more like a toll gate at the border control. So you can imagine the efficiencies that will be realized through this corridor in terms of really speeding up cargo and ensuring that companies are competitive as well. All right, so what are the current economic sort of activities that are happening in the continent? Quite interestingly, again, Namibia, Shell and Total Energies have discovered about 11 billion barrels, in the Walvis Bay, Swakopmund area. So as we speak, there's deals signed by obviously the government and a few extraction oil companies, including obviously Total and Shell as well. So the discovery pretty much would put them in par with an oil-rich country like Angola. These are the changes, obviously, economically that are happening through, the current activities that are happening. There's a huge investment made into the Dangote oil refinery project in Nigeria. This, ladies and gents, will make the project the biggest refinery in the world. Yes, the biggest in the world. You include, obviously, countries that are oil-rich like the UAE, Qatar, and obviously Saudi as well. So Dangote has been quite aggressive in this investment to this project in Nigeria. There's a big also investment into a new port that will pretty much be the biggest in East Africa, an investment of about 10 billion rands. That's between Saudi Arabia, that's between Tanzania and obviously Qatar as well. So again, you're seeing a whole lot of investment coming from the Middle East. You're seeing a whole lot of investment, obviously, coming from China into the continent. The trade-off, as far as that is concerned, is yet to be known. We're hoping that, obviously, the contract is, number one, above board, and secondly, favors Tanzania as a country, as far as the future is concerned. An investment of $9.9 billion has been made on a railway. It's called Standard Gauge Railway from Mombasa to Malaba in Kenya. This, ladies and gents, should make sure that, obviously cargo moves and there's efficiencies within the supply chain space. What it means for the road freight transport sector, it's yet to be seen, but obviously one can anticipate that there will be a lot of pressure as far as road freight is concerned, as far as all of these developments are concerned. Again, we're seeing another one in Nigeria, from Lagos to Calabar railway, about 1,400 kilometers, and the investment value is at about $10 billion US. So, ladies and gents, these are the opportunities that are obviously, on the continent, and you may just find, yourself playing in a space, or you want to maybe investigate a lot more and place yourself quite favorably to sort of partake in these opportunities. Again, an investment from the UAE made by IRH of Mopani Copper Mine. Mopani Copper Mine is one of the biggest copper sort of producers in the copper belt in Zambia. A 51% stake acquisition by IRH, leaving the 49 to ZMMC, which is a government-owned entity. So the pillars, as far as accessing African markets are concerned, as far as go-to-market is concerned, they really remain the same. Obviously, with one or two sort of models that have been employed as far as my experience is concerned over time in the African continent. I think the first one is to really develop an agency sort of model, identify a few agencies within the countries that you want to sort of do business in. It could be individuals who are influential or with the right relationships at the right sort of targeted sectors, organizations that are really, sort of complementing the value chain that you want to do business with. Appointing a local channel or country partner has always been a model that's been employed over the years. It works in a sense that a local partner would understand really the macro environment a lot better, the business culture, and it would connect easily from a culture perspective as well. So, you support obviously a local partner, and you make sure that they mirror what you do as a business. Distribution model really, identify obviously those that are capable, number one, from a capacity perspective, number two, from a market access perspective, experience as well, and being able to unlock those opportunities for you. Collaborations have always been a great way of doing business. Sort of collaborating with those within the ecosystem, within the value chain. It's a win-win situation where your offering could become wider with somebody else and become attractive from a value perspective. And obviously, the one that we're all trying to avoid is to really make an investment as far as opening an office within a country's concerned. However, obviously, due diligence, when it's done, there are markets that are very conducive to opening a local office in, and this and stable markets from an economic or macroeconomics perspective. It's promoted by other countries through obviously having benefits of investing in those countries, being prioritized to partake in certain businesses locally as well. So it could be a sort of a diverse, very flexible model that you employ for the African market with all this go-to-market pillars employed for you to actually realize your desired results. And connect through really SA trading offices. There's consulate offices in many African countries that we have sort of agreements with and are in good standing with. That's what's called FERs in each of the consulate offices. It's called foreign export reps. So these are the guys that will give you very good information as far as the industries that you're targeting are concerned. These are the guys that will give you good contacts in sort of establishing those relationships. And obviously then they will guide and sort of protect you in your collaborations and your endeavors in developing new business within the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, that's me. I hope, Harry, I've stick to the 20-25 minutes. If there's any questions, I don't know if I'm going to take them now or later. Thank you, everyone.
Gabriela, thank you so much. This was a great presentation. If you don't mind, let's leave the questions for the questions and answers at the end of the session. But thank you very much. I see, the exchange rate is a problem. But the interesting thing you spoke about is the change in the landscape of trade in Africa. And Russia has a role that we need to understand. But the investments are very encouraging. It's very interesting you're telling us there. Important now, the CTRAC obviously is an international organization. Opening in-country offices and so on is a big thing for consideration. Even though I think you guys already have a lot of that in place already. But Kabelia, I think guys are looking forward to engaging with the panel discussion. Thank you so much for this great presentation. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Ladies and gents, I'm just going to bring up our program again. Right, so John Rossa just informed me that he's ready to present. John, we understand you're not feeling well and your voice is not well and you're coughing a lot. So we take cognizance of that. So let's see how it goes. But our next presenter then is Mr. John Rossa, the Chief Director, African Bilateral Economic Relations, the Trade Branch, Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. He's going to talk about implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, opportunities for the transport sector. Thank you very much, John.
Good morning, Harry, and good morning, all the colleagues. My apologies for joining late. Actually not feeling very, very well, so I'll try and speak very slowly so that my cough does not interfere.
Thank you, John.
But also, will not have a presentation. I just wanted to highlight a few points, give you sort of a sense on the status of implementation of the AfCFTA, where we are, what you can expect during the course of the year. But also then I will share in terms of what does this mean for the transport sector in terms of opportunities that the AfCFTA provides. As you know, the AfCFTA was first adopted in 2018 in Kigali, Rwanda. It entered its operational phase in 2019 in Niger, and on the 1st of January 2021, it started trading. So what it means is that all the tariff concessions that countries are submitted and have agreed to becomes effective from the 1st of January 2021. Just to give you a practical idea, if a product, or let's say transport as a service, were being charged 10% duties on it, and today we are in 2024, it means that from 2021, the country would have to reduce by 2% if they've committed to a 5-year tariff reduction. In 2022, another 2%. In 2023, another 2%. This year, they would reduce another 2%, so 8% in total. And then next year, they would reduce the final 2% to zero rate that particular product. So that's what it actually means. And so far, in terms of signatories of the AfCFTA, 54 African countries have signed. The only country that did not sign is Eritrea. So they didn't sign the agreement at all. One does not know the specific reasons why. But 54 have signed. Of the 54 countries that have signed, 47 have submitted their tariff offers. And of this, a number have already started trading. As you know, in 2022, the AfCFTA launched the Guided Trade Initiative, wherein 8 countries started trading under the AfCFTA. What it means is that they've created a provision in the agreement that those countries that have submitted their tariff offers, that have they've established their national implementation committees, countries that have already domesticated aspects of the AfCFTA legal framework, and those that wish to do so, they could then start trading. So in 2022, 8 of these countries started trading, which included Egypt, Tunisia, Ghana, Cameroon, Rwanda, Kenya, in Southern Africa, it was Mauritius and Tanzania that started. We started trading under the AfCFTA on the 31st of January 2021 as South Africa. We shipped our first containers. I'm sure you may have seen it on the media, to Ghana and to Kenya. And since then, a number of companies have already shared with us what their shipment details are to export under this agreement. It is important for you to just understand what the procedures will be for you to start trading under this agreement. If you are a producer of products, you want to start trading and exporting under the agreement, the first thing to do is to register yourself as an exporter under the AfCFTA with SARS. You contact SARS. If you don't have the contact, we can easily share that with you, and they will provide you with all the details. The second is to then share with them what your shipment plans are and products, so that they can then, on that basis, come and do inspection of your products to confirm that you qualify to trade under the AfCFTA, not only in terms of the tariff reduction schedules, but also mainly in terms of whether you qualify in terms of the rules of origin, because you need to qualify under the rules of origin to be able to then trade under the AfCFTA. Once that is done, then the normal custom clearing processes then follows. Our job as the DTIC is to then alert the countries to which you are going to export goods to be able to ensure that the concessions agreed to under the AfCFTA are then granted to you. And as you may have heard right now also, and other countries that have expressed interest to start is Algeria. They should be starting sometime in April. Nigeria has also indicated that they are going to start trading in April. And by the end of this year, a total of 31 countries that have signed and ratified the AfCFTA that meet the requirements are going to start trading under the AfCFTA. As you can see, it's a very fast process. Countries are really committed. And sometimes we do get the impression that we have left private sector behind. But the truth of the matter is that trading under the AfCFTA can only happen if private sector is fully on board. So we are willing to do more interactions like this so that you can more deeply understand what trading under the AfCFTA really means, and that you can then be able to know how you can participate. And Harry has our details. So if you have queries or inquiries, we are open to respond to that. We are open to come to your companies to talk to you, whether we do it also virtually to go in details. Because what it simply means is that we have two options to trade with certain countries. One is we continue to trade under the MFN, or we trade under the AfCFTA. I'm going to share with you a presentation that was done yesterday during the South African Ghana Business Forum, Harry, that you can feel free to circulate. And it will just give you sort of a model of what the difference and the benefits are for South African companies when trading under the MFN or any other agreement versus trading under the AfCFTA. And you'll see considerable benefits for private sector. Now, what are the steps that we need to take to make this effective? I think that private sector really needs to be very conscious, much more interested in getting knowledge about the AfCFTA. And I've seen a lot now as we started engaging private sector. When we trade under the AfCFTA, we will trade with countries outside of SADC, with countries outside of SACU. So in other words, it's trade with East Africa, trade with countries in Central Africa, trade with countries in West Africa, trade with countries in North Africa. All our trade with Southern African countries, those that have ratified the SADC Free Trade Agreement, will still take place under the SADC Free Trade Agreement. But if you are trading with a country like Uganda, Kenya, you are trading with a country like Ethiopia, you are trading with a country like South Sudan, then you'll trade with them under the AfCFTA. And the same would apply, for example, because DRC has not signed up to the SADC Free Trade Agreement. They have joined the East Africa Community, so we may trade with them under the East Africa Community tariff schedule. So it's important to understand the different tariff offers for the countries, and we are able to assist companies once you share with us what your tariff HS codes are, to share with you what are the applicable tariff offers for your particular product in the different jurisdictions. And they differ from region to region. And in the case of North Africa, they didn't submit as a region, rather as countries individually. So it will differ from country to country. So it's just an important point that I wanted to share with you. But I think most importantly is the point that by the end of this year, 31 African countries will have started trading under the AfCFTA. And for the transport sector, when we talk about intra-Africa trade, transport is the engine of all of that. Whether it is to move people, whether it is to move goods, whether it is to move other services sector, transport becomes critical to deliver all of those aspects. So which significantly means that there are enormous opportunities for the transport sector. In terms of the AfCFTA agreement, for now, they've prioritized 5 services sectors to be liberalized. Transport is one of them. The other one is communication, business services, financial services, and tourism services. So these are in their final stages of negotiations based on the tariff reduction schedules that countries are willing to offer. In addition to tariff reduction schedules is also the need to harmonize the legal and regulatory framework across the continent. As you know, for example, one of the challenges that we have is that different rules apply to other trucks when they come to South Africa, or our trucks when they go out into other countries. And what the AfCFTA will seek to do is to harmonize all of that so that it makes it easier for operators to then operate across the continent. But in addition to that, one of the issues that is also being dealt with is the question of inter-country payments, to facilitate that, to settle your accounts in local currency backed by the Afreximbank. There is also an instrument to deal with the question of cross the bonds, because we know it's a problem to settle that when you have to pay different types of bonds in each and every country. So the AfCFTA is also going to help resolve those issues, which I'm sure is also going to benefit the transport sector. In terms of looking forward, data shows us that the transport sector will be one of the major beneficiaries in terms of services of intra-Africa trade. It will account for about 25% of the benefits or the increase in business for transport operators. So you stand to gain quite a lot. But also in terms of demand for trucks, demand for rail wagons, demand for airplanes to carry goods, demands for vessels to transport goods between and amongst African countries. Data also shows us that there are significant opportunities for investment in the transport sector. I'll just share a few numbers with you. The estimated cost of trucks required as a result of the AfCFTA implementation is about $345 billion. And that will enable the industry to provide about 2 million trucks that the industry will need by 2045 in order to transport goods from across the African continent. The other is that the estimated cost of aircraft required as a result of AfTA implementation is $25 billion. And for rail wagons, it's going to be $36 billion. And for vessels, it's $4 billion. Now, this has been done on the basis of a study carried out by UNECA, which did a projection of the value and also the volume of goods that need to be transported between different regions of the continent, Southern Africa to East Africa to West Africa, West Africa to East, to Southern Africa and to North and so forth. And they then were able to get these projections made. So it shows that it's not only in terms of carrying goods, but it's also in terms of the benefits that the transport sector tends to gain and opportunities for investment that are going to be open for the transport sector. So I would seriously, in conclusion, advise and call upon the transport industry to come very much closer to us, whether you are a transport truck owner, whether you are a freight forwarder, whether you are a custom clearer agent, just across the entire value chain, to better understand what this agreement means for you, where the opportunities are, because all the countries, we are starting to identify what products we can trade with one another. We did that with Ghana yesterday. We have been doing this with a number of other countries constantly as well. The other important thing just to note is that it will be very important for yourselves to also start establishing linkages with other operators across the continent, because if you want to increase intra-Africa trade, which the FCFTA agreement intends to at least double in the first 10 years of its operation, it simply means that we need to start thinking about the return leg. So it can't just be about one-way transporting of goods, but it's also the bringing back what is on the return leg. So inbound and outbound becomes very important. And in order for you to be able to achieve that, you'll need to establish connections and linkages with other countries, but also with buyers and sellers in both areas in the different jurisdictions, so that you are then able to offer a package solution and service to some of the clients that are across the world and waiting and will rely on your services. With that said, I would like to thank you very much for the opportunity, and once again apologize for my late presentation. Thank you.
John, thank you so much. It was much worth our while, and sharing this important information and the important role the transport sector is playing in this. And I can understand what you're saying, extending the invitation for the transport sector to get into contact with you. I've also taken liberty in sharing your email address with the group. Yes, and the 8 countries already started trading into 2022, and South Africa also joining in. That is, which is great. So important to share with the people that they need to register with SARS to get to become part of this platform. So John, thank you. I don't know, would you be available for the questions and answers in about 15 minutes time?
Yeah, I'll wait, Harry. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Much appreciated. Ladies and gents, yeah, let's have a look quickly at our program again. So the next presenter we're going to bring up here is Mr. Eugene van Niekerk. He's a product solutions executive with Ctrack South Africa. He's going to talk about predictive business operations in Africa through new generation telematics and artificial intelligence. Sounds very interesting. Thank you very much, Eugene.
Good morning, Harry, and thank you very much for the opportunity. Let me share my screen quickly.
Can you switch your camera on as well, please, Eugene?
Now I can do that, Harry.
Thank you.
Let me just confirm that you can see my screen. Thank you. Harry, thank you very much for the opportunity to be able to just have a discussion and some thoughts about predictive business operations in Africa with new generation telematics and artificial intelligence. Harry, is my position in our business allows me to visit different regions, to be able to go into Africa specifically, and I've had the privilege to travel with Kabelo in the recent past to quite a few African countries. And my discussion today is about, that's everything or a subject that's on everybody's minds nowadays is artificial intelligence. And it is something that is rapidly evolving throughout the world through different regions. Some are more advanced than others. and it promises to transform the African technological ecosystem. And I think, referencing what Kabelo was saying and the previous presenter was saying about the development, the investment that's happening in Africa in terms of business growth and business strategies. Companies like Microsoft's Copilot and Google's Gemini systems integrated into so many of our daily programs already is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And in Africa, it's not going to be that different. But we talk loosely about artificial intelligence and what it is. And I think what we should maybe just do is just step back and just think about what is artificial intelligence. And there's many ways that you can describe artificial intelligence. But according to most of the people out there, artificial intelligence is the ability for a digital computer or a computer-controlled robot to perform tasks which humans or intelligent beings normally do. This is frequently applied term when projects for developing systems needs to happen with the intellectual processes characterized by humans. So our ability to reason and discover meaning, to generalize or to learn from past experiences. And we find it every day in our daily lives. So if you have a mobile cell phone, if you have anything like Instagram or potentially Facebook, so many different places. If you just go onto the internet and you search for something, suddenly all your other applications has access to what you've been looking for. So artificial intelligence is used in expert systems. It is used in natural language processing, machine vision. It becomes part of our daily lives. And Africa is not going to be excluded from this environment. And I think, referencing back to what Kabelo was saying, there's massive investment in Africa. And the World Bank, as Kabelo already mentioned, already also believes that Africa has the potential to become quite a leader in the adoption of artificial intelligence. But saying that it's there and saying that it's available is one thing. Artificial intelligence is a digitized system, and to be able to reap the benefits or utilize the functionality and the capability of artificial intelligence does require a few things. And, having spent some time in Africa in the recent past, I've come to realize that at different paces, at different levels, different countries have a specific level of access to these aspects. And the three key aspects that makes artificial intelligence adoption quite important is the ability to have proper infrastructure and electricity, of course. And being in South Africa, we all understand and live with the consequences of not having enough power. But it's not unique to South Africa only. There's other African countries that have experienced in some way, shape or form also the lack of electricity or the ability to provide power to businesses. Unfortunately, that has negative impact on business growth and continuity. The second area that is really critical is for businesses and for individuals to have access and connectivity to the internet. I've been to different places, different countries, and things have changed and changed for the better and have improved. But there are still African countries and African areas that has a limited connectivity or bandwidth capability. And I know there's massive investments happening at the current moment, but to be able to benefit artificial intelligence in any technology, you need to have connectivity. You need to be on the internet for the systems to be able to talk to each other. And the third critical area to be able to really adopt artificial intelligence is the skills. The skills of the people not only using the programs, but also the skill set of the people utilizing AI to the benefit of their systems. Maybe one comment on AI. I think there's a lot of people that can use it in different places. I think originally artificial intelligence was primarily focused on improving internal processes in businesses to be able to facilitate the mundane jobs that humans used to do, the things that we repeatedly do. So as we digitize and as we automate, AI becomes that tool that allows us to do that. So as advanced as AI might be, it remains a digital technology. And like other digital technologies, its reach and accessibility are contingent on bringing more people and data online. And that's very true for Africa. So one of our challenges, one of the focus areas is that we need to, as quickly as possible, bridge that digital divide to enjoy the dividends of artificial intelligence. So we can't put the cart in front of the horses here. We need the infrastructure, we need the consistency of availability, and of course, we need the people to be able to do that. We've seen the investments that the Kabelo spoke about. We've heard the previous presenter talk about the opportunities that is arising there. So there's a very positive moving forward or increase in investment in long haul, middle mile, last mile connectivities. We know this when we see the development in data centers throughout Africa, the ability to bring in more stable and more available connectivity. So there's huge investments, different regions, as Kabelo said, different people with, of course, their strategies and their focuses. But the World Bank has invested quite a bit of money. I know that from our experience, telecommunications, businesses and groups are investing heavily in creating that infrastructure and including that connectivity and that bandwidth. So we need that infrastructure to be in place. And as the development happens in these different corridors that Kabelo was speaking about, we know that with that will come the infrastructure development, will come the connectivity, and that will just allow us the ability to adopt artificial intelligence in so many other ways. But if we bring it back, if we look at AI in my world, in the telematics world, in the technology world, there's been huge leaps going forward in terms of the technologies. So more and more companies is providing the possibility for what is called AI plugins, or what is referred to as open sensor platforms. And through artificial intelligence, it allows technology to perform tasks, what we reference as on the edge. So meaning in the asset, in the vehicle, it's happening, it's making decisions based on certain operational environments, dependent, of course, on the business and the operational environment. So if we look at technologies that's out there, now the technology that we deploy in our vehicles, not only to record specific information on the movement, the progress, the availability of assets as they move through these corridors, as we plan and we schedule them to facilitate and to do work for us. Artificial intelligence on the edge now allows technology to be what is called location and connectivity aware. We know that in certain regions, as I've just spoken, connectivity is not there and is maybe not as good as we expect it to be. So what we need is technology that has the ability to understand whether it's connected to the internet, to the rest of the world or not, and based on that intelligence, make decisions on what needs to happen with specific vehicles. So location dependency, of course, connectivity dependency, but AI allows the systems, the technologies to now make decisions what it needs to happen in a vehicle, even if there is no connectivity. And maybe to make an example, or to give an example here, typically what could happen is that, if we deploy technology in a vehicle and we want to activate certain inputs or outputs, or maybe record information from sensors, even if that technology is not connected to the internet, the intelligence through AI allows the edge processing to still record the information, make decisions, and even implement certain operational functions. The same happens with sensor activation and execution. So through edge technology, we have the ability to control what is happening on our vehicles. And maybe to give an example, I think it's not unknown to everybody that's listening that South Africa has some very specific challenges. Unfortunately, we also have an environment that is conducive to criminality and criminals having the ability to influence our day-to-day business. Many years ago, the transportation of coal as a commodity was seen as a low risk, was seen as I need to move coal from one location to the next. Unfortunately, due to circumstances changing, coal has become a high value commodity, as much as something like copper or any of the high value, the traditional high value commodities. And so now we have to deploy technology in vehicles to be able to prevent unauthorized offloading of commodities in areas that they're not supposed to be. So the technology needs to be location aware. The technology also needs to be able to control and or execute the activation of specific sensors based on where that asset or that vehicle should be. The same applies for having the ability to control what our vehicles are doing, what our drivers are doing. And again, one of these capabilities is the ability to use location, but then implement something like speed management or speed control. And again, through AI capabilities, we use the location, combine that with a speed limiting protocol, allows us to then control when assets enter specific high-risk areas or go onto roads that is maybe not conducive to high speed. So artificial intelligence in technology now is the ability to make intelligent real-time decisions and executing those decisions or those commands without having the connectivity to the internet maybe necessarily, or without humans making those decisions. We see more and more artificial intelligence in machine vision. We know that if we implement camera technology in vehicles through artificial intelligence, this allows us to record information that is important for not only the business control or the business operations, but the ability to have drivers that are operating in a safe environment for other road users to be able to improve the safety on the roads for all the road users. So artificial intelligence in machine vision is something that is rapidly moving forward. We see this through camera systems like advanced driver assist systems, the ability for cameras to make decisions on object detections, whether it's a pedestrian, whether it's an animal, to be able to alert the driver, even if he doesn't see what is happening around him, to be able to detect objects that is closely aligned with those vehicles, to be able to give critical distance or near accident notifications. Even the ability to measure or record something like potholes, to be able to detect the speed limit that a vehicle should be traveling at. And through AI, we have the ability to not only record, but also to analyze in time, on the edge, and to be able to assist the driver to be a better driver, to be a safer driver, ultimately for the benefit of everybody using our roads. There's also camera systems that is called the DMS systems or the driver monitoring systems. And these AI capable systems look at specific events in vehicles like distraction, the utilization of a phone, or even the ability to smoke or food and drink. And I've asked the question, and it's not about the fact that a driver is smoking in a vehicle or the fact that a driver is maybe eating something or drinking something. The unfortunate thing is the action of smoking or lighting a cigarette or opening a bottle of water or maybe eating a snack leads to inattentive driving. It leads to distraction. And the risk that we would like to reduce by using AI is for drivers to be focused on what they need to do. You know, that they can smoke or eat when the vehicle is stationary is not a problem. But through AI, we can detect and we could positively engage with the driver to change that behavior. And then unfortunately, as these corridors of logistics expand and more things need to move on our roads, of course, the drivers that drive those vehicles need to get those assets, that commodities or those cargo loads, they need to get them from A to B. And because of the pressure of the economics and people wanting to get things there as quickly as possible, you know, driving hours is a reality. Unfortunately, it's not always good. So fatigue, especially for drivers on long distance routes, is a challenge. It's something that we live with every day. We see it in so many different reports when accidents happens. Unfortunately, it is because our drivers work long hours and they get fatigued. So through AI-enabled technology, we want to detect potential or possible fatigue. We want to prevent that. But of course, if the driver gets to that state where critical fatigue is important, we need to act. We need to make in time, real time, on the edge decisions to save that driver, but not only the driver, the load and all the other road users around them. So if we have the connectivity, if we have the skill sets to apply artificial intelligence, there are significant benefits that can be done. So just from a telematics perspective, you know, there's many different telematics systems out there. As you know, this is what CTRAC does. This is our business. You know, so we provide intelligence edge technology. This is something that we've been doing for more than 38 years. But we need to make sure that the technology is accurate and reliable. It needs to have that capability to make decisions on the edge and to execute those decisions, to assist our drivers, to assist our businesses without necessarily another human having to be involved in that decision making. Through machine vision capability, of course, we provide all of these ADAS and DMS or the driver monitoring systems, the ability to improve and assist the drivers. And then, of course, if we integrate with other systems, the technology is there already. So, you know, we've been involved with many projects over many years. We've done specific projects with Engen, with Fleet Focus magazine on what was referenced as the truck test, which was a real world simulation of what could happen when vehicles travel on specific routes. And so it's important to be able to know that if I'm going to travel on a specific corridor, I'm going to travel from point A to point B, that my vehicle is optimally loaded. So I get the benefit from an economic perspective, from a business perspective of a full load, not overloaded. So I don't want to be at risk to be able to run and damage the roads unnecessarily. So our ability through edge capability and technology to connect to something like an onboard weighing system allows us to make sure that the vehicle is optimally loaded for the specific route that needs to be driven. But also, if something happens on the route, if the load moves, if the load shifts, to be able to know that in time, in real time, before something happens. So intelligent edge technology allows us to be able to do that. I've spoken about smart cameras. I've spoken about the ability to have context on what is happening in our vehicles, whether it is other objects, other vehicles, pedestrians, animals, other vehicles around us that are in close proximity, to be able to alert our drivers when they potentially get fatigued. Through smart camera systems, the telematics environment is changing consistently. Having camera information gives us context about what is happening. It allows us to coach our drivers in a better way. It allows us to also train them to be more vigilant, to be safer on the roads. And a lot of the camera data is also being brought into the telematics environment. As I've said, AI allows us to make real-time decisions without the intervention of humans. It allows us to adapt our functionalities to customize what needs to happen in our vehicles. We also have the ability to use machine learning with all this data that we are recording at a continuous basis as our assets operate, as they work, as they do what they need to do. We are recording massive amounts of data, and through AI and machine learning, we can process this, but we can also present the results in a meaningful way to be able to make better decisions on what's happening. So we can use driving behavior data, we can manage the idling of our vehicles, especially the location times. How long does it take a vehicle to load or offload? With all these new corridors, Kobelo spoke about congestions, not only at border points, but potentially in harbors where vehicles have to offload. So if we have the information about what is happening out there, we can make better decisions. And through AI and machine learning, the systems will allow us to plan better because we know what is happening. So instead of having a maybe unrealistic expectation that vehicles are standing an hour or 2 hours at a border post, if we have all the data that tells us the average border crossing at a specific country is maybe 4 or 5 or 6 hours, then we can plan better. That makes the use of the technology so much easier. And then if we can plan better, our businesses will benefit because we have the ability through AI to schedule jobs, to schedule work on the different corridors, on the different times it takes to move from point A to B, to be able to create on-time and recurring schedules, or the ability to have electronic proof of delivery. Through telematics technologies, we have the ability to provide that visibility. Now, as I said, I've had the opportunity and to move through, to visit quite a few African countries. And, from our perspective, there was always this perception that Africa uses the basics. We've come to realize that in many African countries, more and more businesses, more and more companies are utilizing the full potential of systems like telematics, to be able to have cameras in vehicles, to be able to assist their drivers, to be able to plan better because of the different options that are now available to get cargo to different locations. It is imperative that proper and better planning needs to happen. And telematics and intelligent telematics allows these companies to do that. So if we have all the technology in the vehicles, and if we have the ability to apply the AI that is out there already, there's substantial benefits that can be obtained by businesses. And so by using modern technology, having the ability to be predictive in what's going to happen on a route, we know how long it's going to take through a specific border crossing or offloading at a specific point. We can plan better, and the benefits are substantial. So we can reduce risk, as I've mentioned, through smart camera technologies. We can have safer drivers. We can have safer vehicles on the roads. We can make better decisions with our vehicles depending on where they are and what time they're in those areas. We can realize better cost savings. So to be able to debrief and to be able to coach, to train our drivers in time, but also over time, will change the driving behavior. We've seen significant benefits with companies that focus on the drivers of their vehicles. This will have a direct benefit and a cost impact on the operational costs of those businesses. Having the visibility of the data, and by analyzing the data intelligently and using that in our planning, we can improve our efficiencies. We can select the correct routes or the correct times to go to specific locations. We can plan better to understand because we have the data that's in there. Having real-time capability with the intelligence that sits in the edge, that sits on the technology that's in the vehicles, allows better real-time decision-making. Whether it's the technology that assists us to do that, or the ability for us to get real-time data, to be able to understand what's happening out there and make better decisions. Ultimately, that will benefit all of our companies. And as I said, if we change the behavior, if we coach our drivers, if we understand the road conditions through the AI technologies that's out there, we can make sure that our assets are maintained. We can do predictive maintenance because we know how many kilometers they are traveling, the type of roads that they are traveling on. If we change the behavior of our drivers and ultimately coach them to be better, we will have less accidents, meaning we will have less downtime of the available access, and we will have better utilization on the assets that we actually have out there. So we need to use the technology. It's out there. It is available. And if we do that, in conclusion, Harry, I think that I can say that AI is there in our daily lives, but it's also there in the telematics and in the technologies that we use to manage our businesses and our fleets. We know and we understand that there's investment in infrastructure, in connectivity. People are focusing more on the skill sets and training people better in terms of using artificial intelligence in their environments. It is happening, but it also needs to continue and increase in some areas. And I think lastly, the adoption and the willingness to use technology will have significant benefits. It's available, it's out there. People are sometimes a little bit still scared of using the technologies, and some people will say, oh, I don't want to use AI because it's going to replace my job. It's going to do my things that I used to do. AI is there to improve our lives. And through that, I believe we can have a much, much better environment. So, Harry, thank you very much. That's my slides for the opportunity. And yeah, I will be available also if there's maybe questions afterwards.
Eugene, thank you so much. This was seriously interesting. This edge technology, if I think what John has said, the importance of transport playing in Africa and what they're busy with, edge technology, decision making and to execute and to have your eyes in everything. I think if you're not subscribed to C-Track services, then you've got a serious problem in Africa. So quite an enabling organization to make after work in Africa. So thank you very much, Eugene. I think they'll
Thank you very much, Harry.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to Eugene. Let's have a look at our program again. So last but definitely not the least is Ms. Lebo Letsuhalo. She's the Chief Executive Officer of SingPoint and Whisker. And Lebo, can I also say that you're on the NLCC and you're also on the board of Transnet. This is a very important lady in our industry. Lebo, thank you very much. Also, you're associate with the Transport Forum. Really appreciate that. And Lebo's going to talk about the private sector integration and support to accelerate after implementation. Thank you very much, Lebo. Just contacting Lebo. Oh, there we go, Lebo. For a moment, I thought we lost you. Just unmute Lebo, please. Lebo, if you can hear me, you must unmute, please. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be with you in a sec. Okay, ladies and gents, we've got a problem with Lebo's microphone. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put her on speakerphone, and then she's going to talk through my microphone. Let's see if that works. Lebo, I think the people can hear you now if you speak.
All right. Thank you, Harry. Colleagues, thank you for being patient with me. Technology sometimes is not nice with us. If you can just follow through my presentation, what I will be talking about is private sector integration to be able to accelerate after implementation. I think, colleagues, you have heard already from Mr. John Rocha, as part of after implementation, how crucial it is to ensure that private sector is really aligned and it become part and parcel of the work that we are doing. So with that, let's start thinking around it. Why are we doing this? I think John has already indicated that 54 out of 55 countries have already signed in terms of the agreement. And the potential that comes with AfTA is really connecting 1.3 billion people and the GDP of $3.4 trillion. That's a lot of money, colleagues, and has got a potential of lifting 30 million people out of extreme poverty. And if you look at the GDP perspective in terms of boosting Africa's income, is really around $450 billion. That being the case, start asking yourself, why are we having, Africa pre-continental trade area implementation? I want you to also start thinking around it, around the proportion of intra-regional export by a continent in terms of South Africa. Where we are currently, trade within Africa is very limited. I think we've been exposed previously in terms of looking at during the pandemic, whereby our interdependence with the European countries, with Chinese as well, that we realized that a lot of imports coming into Africa were really limited. So now if you start looking at the statistics, trade within Africa is low compared to other global regions, with 18% of exports remaining on the continent and compared to 50 to 60% or more in Europe. That's really a shame, looking at where South Africa is, where Africa is in terms of, our capabilities and also in terms of our resources. One thing that I want everyone to understand is that, our total value of export by destination, this is just goods only, colleagues. You can see where Africa is, what I'm talking about. So our, export destination, already looking at this, you can see the numbers that from the global perspective and the intra-regional perspective is very limited. One thing that's very important as well is we remember the operational tools for AfCFTA that has been put forward to enable the goods to happen, to also services to happen from the integration perspective. Rules of origins as well, the protocols that has been put forward and how we're eliminating the, the non-tariff barriers as well. So I think Ms. Narusha has already touched a bit around that from the context. So we really want to transform Africa into the global powerhouse for Africa. For the future, that's what we want. You've seen the issuance of the AfCFTA certificates of origin for various countries so far. Tunisia, South Africa has already, on the 31st of January, already traded under AfCFTA. But what's more crucial is really harmonized policies and really products, which is very critical for this. Now, let's look at this number, guys. The reality is Africa is really growing. And what am I talking about? If you look at Africa, by 2100, it has been projected that Africa's population is to be the second only to Asia's. So what does that mean? It means growing the economy, looking at private sector from the services perspective as being integral, to the whole, growth of Africa. So you can see the numbers are changing, colleagues, and really it shows you as it is that the population keeps on growing, but start looking at this number for Africa. If you look at this bubble here for Africa, where we will be heading up to, you can see 2045, 2050 already. So we are projected to overtake Asia by birth in 2060. And when that happens, it means that we start moving from 1.3 billion where we are at to 4.3 billion, amazing as it is. But it does not stop there. It means that we have to grow the economy. And that's where the concept of AfCFTA is really coming from. People always ask me, why AfCFTA? Now, at a high level, looking at our natural resources in Africa, we still remain a key territory on the global map. Still rich in natural resources and also oil as well, which is one of the areas that we know that we have to be growing in from the Africa perspective. But the reality is we need the services. We need the capacity to be able to drive the potential of Africa. So you see the reports by the Economic Commission for Africa. It reveals that Africa's contribution by then, by global trade, it was remaining at 3% of global trade. That was when they did the statistics. So it's suggesting that African nations still engage more with trade outside the countries than ourselves. And with Africa Free Continental Trade, the ideal position that we want to see is Africa beneficiating, Africa looking at its own resources, but trading amongst each other within the framework that has been created. So we need to get to a point where we reduce commodity dependence and foster diverse, resilient economies. I'm painting a picture so that you understand the importance of private sector participation in enabling this. So this picture really depicts underutilized potentials and it speaks volumes, from the industry perspective. Look at all of this. These are all the resources that still remains from the Africa perspective and where AfCFTA is refocusing and taking shape, into for the future. And there's also another why. The other why is really around unemployment in Africa, which is the highest, in the globe. The statistics speaks for themselves as it is, but again, AfCFTA will provide that opportunity to boost its position for diversification, and that will strengthen the industries and also create jobs and opportunities for the industry. So now let's get into the detail now. So the detail is really around we want to compete within our supply chains. So supply chains compete and not products. Always remember that. And that is why you have private sector that is driving what you are doing. So supply chains compete and not products, commodities, or companies. So the nature of that competition is between companies, but it's not between companies, but rather between your supply chain. So when you are here as a supply chain community, you have to ask yourself, how do you remain competitive within Africa? Now talking about after looking at the operational tools that has been put forward. So we need to now start integrating in terms of our supply chains for us to be competitive. The movement of the goods, looking at reverse logistics as well. We have to start looking at the conventional wisdom, which is competition in the future, which will not be company versus company, supply chain versus supply chain. So that's where private sector is heading up to in terms of building those collaborations and the partnerships. So we have to focus on supply networks. Really, if you start mapping our supply chains, now you start integrating the capabilities in the industry. That's what we are looking at from the private sector to enable the movement of the goods. Because again, remember, after is around movement of goods, movement of people as well, but it is enabled by a service industry. So those capabilities from the supply chain perspective that we need to look at, internal supply chain network costs, service capabilities, how we bring effective and efficient supply chains around our networks, but also internal supply network design. I think the logisticians out there knows exactly how vertically integrated some of our industries are, but some of them are not. And look at how you look at redesigning the entire supply chain network from the Africa perspective, because now when you start diving, you will see a slide that shows you the network of supply chains from the logistics perspective and look at the distribution channel. More important, because when I'm speaking of distribution channel, is because Africa will not happen, AfTA will not happen without the logistics network that has been created. That's given, and it's very important that we start looking at what the AfTA Secretariat is looking at. Now let's talk about the crucial role of private sector. So for the past few months, the AfTA Secretariat has really been looking at the private sector participation. So private sector has been looked at, it's been recognized as a central role to deliver on AfTA's dual mandate. And there's a private sector strategy that has been identified. And that private sector strategy, colleagues, it really is there to remove the barriers to intra-African trade and production. And let me tell you why it is there, that strategy. We have to have a service strategy that supports production in specific value chains. Value chains like agro-processing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, transportation, and logistics. This is what I'm going to be talking about now. So like I said on the previous slide, the strategy has to inform the production and enable those specific priority sectors. So the AfTA on its own, AfTA has identified specific priority sectors. As you can see, agro-processing, automotive, pharmaceuticals, transport and logistics, and digital trade. So when you have a service strategy, it has to enable this priority sector, some of these priority sectors, because transport obviously is a service on its own. So this focus is really on intra-African trade. And what has been done previously from the private sector strategy is that collaboration with private sector has been increased now. And in fact, it's more encouraged because now, it has been opened that the private sector can start now signing off in terms of the services. There's a whole lot of stakeholders that has been engaged, and I think more work has to happen from the Africa and the South Africa perspective. So for those that are already in textile, horticulture, financial services, telecommunications, and digital services, as much as I'm identifying these private priority trade sectors, the reality is a transitional process in terms of other goods that we are focusing on from the AfTA side, with textile, horticulture, financial services, telecommunications, and IT, and so forth. So we are looking at the market as a whole from the Africa side. It's not just what you're looking at. We have the mining industry where we know that most of our raw materials are exported. Beneficiation is encouraged in the long term to be able to do that. So now, guys, let's talk about these priority sectors. Because I'm speaking again that when you are looking at the what do we call it? sorry, colleagues, let me just go back to the slide. So when you start looking now at the trading in goods and services.
Lebo, sorry to interrupt you, Lebo. I think the slide is frozen. Okay, maybe you can reshare or something. I don't know what's going on. The slide is standing still.
Can you see it?
Yeah, now we can see the presenter's deck. There we go.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So if you now start looking at the trade in services specifically, the trade in services is concentrated mostly among the West Africa countries, Nigeria, Ghana, and North Africa for imports and North Africa for export. And Morocco and Egypt constitute 40% of exports in 2018. So there's a high potential sectors that are identified with potential that are meeting demand already. But one of the things that we are seeing is that with some of these, priority sectors, we can see a potential for economic growth, employment, and inclusivity, especially for the youth and the women as well. So if you look at South Africa, it's one of the 3 competitive services now when you dive into export services as well. It's one of the 3 most competitive services economies in the African continent with a total service export recording to 14.7 billion in 2019. And whilst the C2 athlete developed country recording services export to 31 million as well. So the modern services that you are seeing coming up, education, telecommunications, entertainment sectors, online services, more also on the technical, a technology perspective, online retail. I think e-commerce is one of the enablers to all the work that needs to happen. So if you are really thinking of export services right now, the export services that you are talking about, these are some of the areas that you are looking at. Now, let's dive into these specific value chains that we're speaking of. Now, one of the priority sectors that I indicated is the automobile value chain. So if you get into these ecosystems, for people that did not know on the automobile, manufacturing processes that are assembling in Africa, we get rubber from Cote d'Ivoire, copper from Zambia, electrical harness from Botswana, steering wheels from Tunisia, and seat covers from Lesotho. So integration between the countries has grown in importance to maximize, productivity, already. So this value chain that you are seeing from the South African, from the Africa perspective, whilst the focus is really building the automobile industry, which is a priority sector, we need to now start asking with this automobile value chain, how do we build this ecosystem from the service perspective? Because it does exist, it's a priority sector. So how are you going to enable some of the services which is already existing, but they can be developed and more beneficiation for more export purposes? That's just on the automobile. So if we move into the next sector, which is the pharmaceutical value chain right now. I mean, the pharmaceutical logistics market analysis, it shows that, there's a projection of 5.13% in the long sector. So the barriers and from the services that we need to start looking at currently is really increasing production and intra-African trade for pharmaceutical industry and include lack of markets, which is really some of the main barriers. Scale, lack of competitiveness compared to other regions, regulations, there's a whole lot of harmonization that needs to happen and insufficient transport and logistics. And again, you can see it brings more opportunities for us. So if you look at this map, it already tells you where the number of pharmaceutical manufacturers facilities exist into Africa. So this value chain is very critical. From the services perspective, again, look at logistics, look at warehousing as well. We have to start looking at the services, from the freight forwarding perspective, that's what we need to be building. If you go into transport and logistics, which I know most of us are in transport and logistics, colleagues, if you start looking at the Trans-African highways already, this dotted line already is everything that you want to think of, from the linking of transport, which is a pillar for after it. Transport and logistics doesn't exist again. Unfortunately, it's not going to be successful. All right. So we need to make sure that we grow this whole network. Looking at African, Trans-African highways, already, colleague, there's a bit of initiatives. This will happen in a different conversation, by the way, where we look at road, rail, maritime, multimodal approach in terms of supporting AfCHA. Africa has got a lot of waters, And then with Africa having a lot of waters, we don't have ships. The maritime industry has got a huge potential as it is. South Africa, as it is, 319 billion that contributes to our economic sector, to the GDP of the country around 2019. So that's an average number that you are looking at. So if you really want to understand why these are our economic sectors in South Africa, which is mostly similar we see in other African countries. Then already this gives you a picture, if you look at South Africa in terms of this mapping, where we have more maritime, if you really have to analyze this was the 2019 figures, by the way, then you already know where the opportunities comes. And when you link it up from the services perspective and the opportunities perspective and start thinking around the special economic zones as an opportunity, that's where the services are. But globally, and look at Africa as a whole, not just South Africa. Like I said, South Africa, 9%, 319 billion. But in Africa, these are growing industry, getting to $344.2 billion US. There again, as a pillar of enabling Africa. So the current things that we have to focus on from the services, and which is priority areas from there, is really prioritizing areas in terms of value chains, custom delays, limited physical transport infrastructure. If you go to DRC, you go to Lubumbashi, and you look at cross-border movement, we have a bigger challenge around that. Lack of quality truck fleets as well. We need, like Mr. Rocha said, we need 2 million trucks based on the study that was done. Aviation integration, AFTA supports that in terms of the single Africa air transport market to increase air freight offerings. So another service opportunity, the scaling of warehouse capacity, think around it for all the goods. We need refrigerated warehouse. We need bonded warehouses. Look at the cold chain look at the cold chain warehousing capacity. That's where the services are. I'm not going to dive much into this, but this gives you already the corridors and the ports within the SADC, where we are at. Then you will understand where our raw materials are passing along our highways, where the opportunities comes around the regional corridors, the geographical corridors as well, the infrastructural bottlenecks that are already existing with bridges, confusing border logistics and complex customs procedures again, which really required us to be able to harmonize. And also one last point is around how we connect adjoining countries, because we understand that some of the African countries are landlocked, and this cannot be emphasized enough. Colleagues, logistics very important in terms of this, which brings and also integrates some of the things which speaks to BRICS and look at Africa's stewardships in the global ocean governance and sustainability agenda, which is another discussion, but it remains to be an opportunity for AFTA from the services in ensuring that we also create possible genuine public and private partnership for integration in the logistics side. So logistics as an own, from the private sector, we really need to enable that from the cold chains, from the transport perspective, from road, rail, maritime, aviation, the connection across Africa as well. So let's speak to agriculture and agro-process, which is the fourth priority area. The highest value agriculture and agro-processing has got close to $50 billion of imports annually. So we know that Africa produces all the principal grains, corn, wheat, and rice. In terms of the movement, we know how much maize moves via Zambia into DRC. DRC imports most of their goods. Opportunities and enabling such with regards to warehouses, the services, very important to look at it. Refrigerated infrastructure, which is necessary, like I said earlier, which supports the agro, environment. But some of the service interventions that comes, it's technical assistance programs that looks at capability building and digital modules. Colleagues, again, remember what I said. We have a lot of resources, but the skills to also process some of this is necessary. So I think South Africa and other African countries, from the resources perspective and skills perspectives, is bringing forward also more opportunities. I always say that if you look at these priority sectors, and the aim of AFTA is to ensure that we build the Africa, made in Africa, sold in Africa, but export out of Africa as a final product. That's what we want to get to. So these priority sectors are the priority sectors that are going to really enable that to happen. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of gender mainstream. Part of what I love in really how we mainstream in terms of inclusive of youth and women. So I can tell you there's a protocol on youth and women from the AFTA perspective, which really incorporating gender in all trade-related issues of AFTA. And this really comes with access to trade finance, trade information, data aggregation that you're going to have, capacity building, how you strengthen women and youth traders. With some of these priority sectors, especially in agriculture, we have small scale, farmers. In mining, you have small scale miners as well. The question is, how do you integrate them from the Africa perspective? Because these bring competitiveness in the domestic and international markets, and we want to see that participation in regional change. So there is just a focus on that, which requires a different conversation, Harry, around, as part of the engagement going forward. But there is a protocol on that to ensure that we grow our industry. So I want to bring now this digital trade, like I said earlier, that is, speaking of how technology become a powerful tool to optimize our supply chains and improving our efficiencies. I think I'm not going to tap much about it because Eugene has spoken around technology, how we need to leverage on it, from the Africa perspective. We have abundant resources, growing consumer market, which can become a prominent manufacturing destination for tech-intensive industry and a key link into global supply chains. I mean, if you start thinking of, last mile delivery, drone delivery as well, e-commerce, those are the opportunities, transport management solutions, bringing visibility, within AFTA. But I want to bring also this part, which is technology integrated, but more on the payment. There's something called the payment system, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, which is a cross-border financial market infrastructure that has been enabled from AFTA perspective. What I like about this, when you swipe your credit card with the SWIFT system, the money doesn't remain in Africa, it goes outside Africa into a European country. So the purpose of the Pan-African Payment Settlement System, whilst you're conducting your business out there, is connecting African banks, payment service providers, and other financial market intermediaries to enable instant and secure payments between African countries. Don't we love that? I love it because now you can already start having instant or near instant transfer of funds between originators and so forth. But what I love is that you use your local currency. That's what I love about this PABSS system. So we want money to remain in Africa. So you can see some of the banks that are already incorporating this. So you can see now from transactions, when you are offering services or you're moving the goods, there is a PABSS system that is supporting the protocol, that is supporting the priority areas in terms of doing business. So colleagues, this, the pay says, like I said, it enables transfer of funds between all the originators in one African country and beneficiaries in another. What I like, and getting into the private sector database, which is my second last slide, is that with AFTA colleagues, there is also an AFTA hub. There's an AFTA hub whereby you have loaded, goods within Africa, manufactured in Africa. It's integrated with logistics service providers. It's integrated with retailers as well, from the process perspective. So there's a system that allows yourself to, because we're talking about private sector now, be part of it and be part of the continental movement to register your business details and interest, within this ecosystem. So that's my last slide. In closing, colleagues, remember Africa supply chain integration will undergo a lot of changes as well. So let's make sure that all of us, we integrate, we partner to be able to grow the Africa that we want. So we know that Africa is not just a market, it's a future waiting to unfold. It's not a trade agreement, it's an economic and social cornerstone of the continent that is awaiting to globally integrate. So colleagues, that is my last slide. I hope I was clear. And that is everything about the services that has to enable the priority sectors that have been identified within AFTA. Thank you, Harry, for helping with the audio.
Thank you, Lebo. Really very interesting and thought-provoking presentation. Clearly, it's so important to understand the African industry ecosystem and sharing this with us. Again, I've learned quite a lot from you. and the importance of women and youth to be integrated into this regional value change. Lebo, so please let's keep this call going, including the mobile call, so that we can keep your audio still going through my microphone as we're going into the panel discussion now. You available for that, Lebo?
Oh, yes, I am. I am available.
Okay, great. So let's just look at our program just to bring up everybody up to speed. So ladies and gents, that is our program again with our panelists. We're going to request all the panelists to unmute themselves and switch on their cameras so we can bring them into a deck here and that we all can see them. And then we're going to allow for a few questions. Thank you.
Harry, I'll ask you to forgive me. I'm in my pajamas, so please.
That's fine, John. We know that you're there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me see, Cabello, are you still with us?
Sure, I'm still here, Harry.
Okay, can we have your camera?
You know, I'm
Sorry,
trying to
Harry,
keep
I
it
couldn't
on.
show my lipstick this morning because of the video and the audio. I had a very red lipstick this morning, by the way.
Harry, I'm trying to have my camera on. I don't know what's wrong. I think it's my system.
Okay, Cabello.
And no, I'm not in my pajamas.
Cabello, at least we've got the other screen there. Let me just see. So I'll be with you guys in a moment. Okay, ladies and gents, remember that we have Eugene, we've got Cabello, we've got John Rocha, and Lebo as panelists. So what you're going to do now is you're welcome to Eugene. Thanks, you can mute yourself again. So ladies and gents, you're welcome now to unmute yourself, and then when I recognize you, you're welcome to ask a question. You know. So let's see, we've got Gwen Foster here. Gwen, you're welcome to unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for a really excellent morning. My question relates to the data side of value chains. And we are living in an era, as has been discussed, of instant access and the request for instant response. We need data standards, and the one that I think without question is coming through and strengthening is the GS1 system. Now, GS1 South Africa sits under the Consumer Goods Council, but the critical one, the GS1 system kicks in as you move towards retail. So that is the code that is scanned at the point of sale, if you like, if you buy a product. But the global location number of the production site is what we need to standardize. And there are certain rules within GS1 that will need to change. For instance, South Africa will allocate the South African member organization number 600 to countries that do not have their own member organizations, such as Zimbabwe. So those companies in Zimbabwe or production sites in Zimbabwe would have a South African prefix. That needs to change if we are going for a global, that's operationally the way they always worked. But with the climate-related data, we are going before the first commercial point. With sustainability standards coming in as a prerequisite, with transparency through the chain and so on, we are going down to ground level. And one of the considerations there is that a farmer, a producer, might not produce alone, especially if we move to the smallholder sector, might not produce enough to supply retail alone. Retail wants consistency. Retail wants volume. So there's the opportunity for managed cooperatives, if you like, And the standards cater for that, but we are currently not identifying that. So I just want to make the point that the data, tying the data to the point of operation, if you like, or the point of creation is important. And when we move into the legal situation, the data owner might be different to the data custodian, might be different to the data processor, might be different to the data user. So again, there are rules over there. And one way of looking at it is saying, what happens if something goes wrong? Whose insurance pays? And that is where the ownership and who is insured comes in. So there's a whole data services industry waiting in the wings, and that will require local capability. And that sort of ties in with the education side. So thank you. That's all I wanted. We mustn't make the wrong assumptions. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Gwen. Really appreciate that. Deborah, I'm just unmuting again here that you can hear us. Yeah, Gwen, I think that was more a comment than a question, and very important. So thank you very much for that. I don't know if one of the panelists want to respond to that, perhaps.
Yeah, Harry, let me just come in. I think what Gwen raises is a very important point, because it talks to the need to harmonize standards across the different spectrum. So it's a very important point. But one important thing to bring to Gwen's attention is when she says that they are waiting in the wings, and my fear is that if you continue waiting in the wings, the whole ship might have sailed so far away, it will become very difficult for you to then adjust and adapt to what is being agreed to. Now, what we are doing as governments is, in addition to what the FCFTA is trying to do, remember the FCFTA will sort of agree on a broad legal and regulatory framework. It's then up to countries individually and regions to then harmonize and align what you are talking about through, for example, mutual recognition agreements on issues around conformity, on issues around metrology, on issues regarding accreditation and certification and so forth. Because the truth is, right across the continent, you have different modalities to deal with that, simply because of our historical past, where some adopted the British model, others adopted the French and the Portuguese, and in between many others have also stepped into that space. So I think what is needed is for there to be a very specific conversation between what the industry behind what Gwen is talking about and the relevant government departments to ensure that as those issues are discussed and finalized, industry perspective are taken into account. But bearing in mind, in conclusion, that what the FCFTA is seeking to do is to create a unique space that gives African initiatives and institutions an added edge or advantage over what is international norms. Because unless we do that, African countries will continue to be marginalized. The fact of the matter, you know that there are about, on the continent, 700 companies that make over $1 billion annually. You have about 780 that make between 500 million to $1 billion. And you have about 700 or so again that make between 100 million and 500 million. But in contrast, there are 44 million SMMEs. So the SMME landscape is very, very big, and many of these companies cannot, as you outlined or highlighted with regards to small-scale farmers and the need for scale and consistency. Many of them cannot comply with international norms. Just simply, number one, the countries do not have the systems in place. They don't have the regulatory frameworks in place. They don't have the skills. They don't have the systems. They don't have many other things that will make it easier to enforce what you're proposing. So in this scenario, what I suggest is, what other alternatives are there to gradually bring those companies that don't comply at the beginning into that system? And that is a very important consideration to make. And also to bear in mind that it's not just about tariff reductions, it's rules of origin. So when it comes to services, there's going to be a strong bias towards services that are wholly and structured or originating from Africa. So in the same way it applies to goods, it will apply to services. And so you need to understand what the demands on local contents are going to be for the type of service that you are going to you're talking about, so that we avoid any tensions in terms of its implementation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Appreciate that comment. Let's see, is there anybody else who want to ask a question? You can unmute or raise your hand.
Harry, may I contribute to that as well?
Yes, please, Lebo.
Colleagues, the reality is that Africa, and also looking at South Africa, we are a sovereign state. We apply, we are a sovereign and democratic state. That's really the founding provision of Africa when you're talking about that. And each and every country within AfCFTA, if you look at Africa as a whole, we have our own rules. And the idea of AfCFTA is really to harmonize, and not only from the goods. And John, you speaking of services, think around transport and logistics from the legislature perspective. South Africa, as an example, we highly regulated in terms of our rules on the road with our trucks and so forth. From the aviation, it's either because it cuts across. But now let's speak of the road freight industry. When you go to, I'll use DRC again as an example, and look at the rules, how we want to harmonize in the legislature perspective, if you look at the charges and so forth. They are totally different. So across the board, I think AfCFTA allows us to be able to do that. Think around already from the, from the products perspective with SABS. When you speak of harmonizing, we need to get to a point from the country-to-country perspective, where we are agreeing in terms of certification, standardization, the testing, the inspection, the metrology that is needed, from the Africa perspective, to ensure that with everything that we are doing, we are complying to the standards that are required from the Africa perspective. But because of the sovereignty that we have, it makes them difficult. That is why more conversations that need to happen also from the tripartite trade agreements that we've already signed off, looking at EAC, look at COMESA and SADC. Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Lebo. Ladies and gents, it seems there's nobody who want to ask a question anymore. I think these presentations were so powerful that we're all convinced. Okay, there's Kumani. You want to ask a question?
All right. Good morning, colleagues. Thank you for such insightful presentations. My question is regarding Mr. Kabelo Kasi's presentation, which was very insightful. It was very insightful in terms of identifying the number of investments that are made within the African continent. However, I was a bit surprised by the graph that he showed, the amount of land that South Africa has that is distributed to agriculture as a percentage share of the entire land. And in terms of the contribution that the agricultural sector has to the GDP is very low, which is we do not appear even on the top 15, which is very shocking. But the investment made by the China company, I just have a question. Yes, you raised the concern of food security that has to be investigated, because now, which means that a foreign national is in charge of the food that we consume as South Africans. But in terms of this kind of investment, do you think that it would have a positive spillover in terms of the percentage that the agricultural sector contributes to GDP?
Thanks, Pumani, for your question. And thanks for the compliment with regard to obviously the whole presentation. So those numbers are very interesting. Obviously, a huge number of, rather a huge percentage of the land is obviously for farming, right? So your concern is around food security. And I agree with you. So when I look at the stats, I feel like, as a country, we could do better in terms of securing our own food security first. But whose responsibility is it? It's certainly the authorities to make sure that, the environment is conducive for farmers to shy away from such deals. At the end of the day, they are their own businessmen. and they can never say no to a good deal. So if I was government, if you ask me, I would then make sure that I prioritize by partnering with all farmers. I prioritize the local industry, South Africa as a country, to make sure that if anything happens, we are secure as far as food security is concerned.
Thank you, Kabelo. Blessing, you're welcome to ask your question.
Okay, thank you for this insightful session. I learned quite a lot. Mine is just, I wanted to check with you if it's possible that we can get either a register of this or some certificate of some sort. I'm a member of SIPS. So when we attend such sessions, they want us to provide evidence to it so that it contributes towards our CPD hours. Will that be a possibility?
Blessing, it's a possibility. I can send you a confirmation of your attendance that we can do, yes. So I'll contact you afterwards. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gents, we're running out of time. We have run out of time, but please let's ask our powerful panelists for closing remarks. Kumani, is it a quick one? I see there's more hands coming up now. Kumani, a quick one.
All right, no, I've got two, one for Ms. Lebo, which talks to private sector integration to support the Africa trade zone. It's quite interesting that you mentioned or highlighted that the African continent, in terms of population growth in the next century, is about to be the highest populated continent when compared to other regions. But this, for me, is a concern. If you look at our growth, it would be interesting to know within this same period how we compare in terms of growth, economic growth, because having a high population and low growth, that is a room for disaster. But it would be interesting to know how we compare. Yes, it's not possible to have economic growth to grow at the same growth as population growth, but in terms of the investments that will create an environment, a conducive environment that will promote high economic growth, it would be interesting to know where we rate in terms of the period identified. Going to Mr. Eugene, technology, yes, in terms of technology, as a continent, I feel that we are far behind in terms of skills, especially skills. If you even heard the president speaking about the visa, just to attract the level of skills that are needed in the country. My concern with technology and even the literacy rate of technology in the African continent is very low. My concern is the risks. I was hoping maybe you would highlight the risks associated with technological advancements. Yes, you are highlighted that there's a high concern in terms of the unemployment rate, which is very concerning. You look at countries like China, there's high automation, but in terms of employment, they don't have that much of a crisis. But for countries like South Africa, it is very concerning. But I hoped you would highlight risks, and in terms of rolling out such technologies, we take into account that there are risks that are inherent with such developments. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumani. Lebo, you want to respond?
Yes, I can respond, Harry. Unfortunately, I don't have that slide here. But what I know from the Africa perspective is that in the near future, Africa is still set to be the second fastest growing region in the world. And the specific, sub-Saharan countries that I'm aware of is DRC. I think we are aware that DRC is growing really economically, Cote d'Ivoire and Ethiopia as well. Niger, Senegal, Rwanda as well. Those are some of the the countries that I know that will be growing in the next few years. If you look at there was a global economic prospect report that was done by World Bank some time ago, which really picks up really a projection of 3.8%. That was just for 2024. And there's more growth. So there's more numbers, which I can also share with you. There's a slide. What I would do here is that the slide that I have, I will just incorporate it here. But it does not relatively look at the year-to-year basis, because your question is really to say that with the number that I have reflected, to say that for example, if we are speaking that around in 2100, we're speaking of Africa's population that's supposed to move all the way on 2060 to 4.3 billion. What you also want to see, I think, on a year-to-year to say that until 2060, so the numbers doesn't get there, by the way, but I can give you the information that we have populated to link up with the opportunities. So what I want to bring also in the picture is that when AfCFTA was put together, the idea was also looking at growth of Africa as a whole. And when I'm speaking of Africa growth, it's really saying that when we grow in the next few years, we need to be able to start seeing that our global economy by, I think by 2035, Africa will have given us an income of $450 billion. And it will be adding 76 billion to the income of the rest of the world. So those are the numbers that you also see what I've shared on the slide. You saw the slide where I indicated 54 countries, how many have deposited their instrument of ratification. So on a statistics perspective, I can share that information. All right, but you must know the number which is really driving AfCFTA currently based on the resources that we have is that, by 2035, there's a gain of 7% from the economy perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Lebo. Eugene.
Kumani, thank you for your question. Kumani, I think you're 100% right. I must say I do share your concern about the skills and the skills transfer, especially from a technology perspective. But I must also say my recent interaction with many different people in Africa, different countries, you can definitely see the change in focus, the change in or the upskilling of people, whether it be through university, whether it be training on the job skills transfers. As I said, I believe there's a long way to go, but I believe that Africa is changing for the better in terms of the skills to be able to utilize the available technology that's out there. I don't think it's going to happen overnight, as is in many of the other regions in the world, but I certainly believe we're moving in the right direction. I think your comment about the risks associated with technology and the relation to employment or unemployment, I think if we see the ability for artificial intelligence or technology to assist us in doing our jobs in a better way, that has got much more value than the risk or the fear of technology replacing people. I think the strength and the ability for technology, computers, robots to process huge amounts of data, to be able to analyze and give us the insights or the information that we need from that to make better decisions is crucial, because there is so much data out there that is currently being generated on a daily basis in our daily lives. So I believe that AI and technology can assist us to do our jobs better. I don't see, my personal opinion is, I don't see that technology will replace humans. It will improve our ability to do our jobs better. And I encourage people to adopt and to work with the technology. And as soon as you do that, and if I maybe can, use an example, there's, if you use LLMs or large language models, you can put together information in a much shorter time period to be able to get to a result than having to read through or search for information yourself using the internet. And so I believe that technology can help us do our work more efficiently, smarter, not harder. So I do see the benefits of the tech for Africa. I honestly don't see the risk in terms of replacing people with robots or technologies. And yes, maybe in some instances there is work that can be done more efficiently and in time by computers or by robots, but I do believe we can never remove the human element from that environment.
Thank you, Eugene. Ladies and gents, I see a lot of hands coming up. I'm going to ask you to post your comments in the chat room. I'm going not to close the session soon. I'm going to keep it live for a while. So type your questions in the chat room, and then I will, forward the questions to the correct panelists to kindly answer via email, because we severely ran out of time now. So please do that. The chat room will still be available for the next 10 minutes. Type your questions in there. Thank you very much. Leto Manolo, I see you want to make an announcement. If you can do it very quickly.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, good morning, everyone. I'm currently running a data collection as a master's student at UCT, and I have a data collection that is running. It's part of the Mail Blast for in Transport Forum, and the study is around the South African Freight Rail Financial Risk Assessment, which seeks to analyze factors such as infrastructural development, operational efficiency, market demand, environmental impacts around freight movement, and also regulatory frameworks. Therefore, I would really appreciate if you're having an experience relating to freight transport, or you're expecting a rail industry to really participate in the study. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gents, let's ask for quick closing comments from our panelists. If we can start with John Rocha. Thank you, John.
Thanks, Harry. Very quick comment. I think linked to one of the questions that was asked. I think the big difference today is that since Ghana became independent as the first African country, most recently, Africa's economic growth was largely determined by exports of raw materials in the main, with little bit manufacturing. What AFTA is trying to do or wants to do is to shift a lot of that to stimulating manufacturing, job creation, and services industries on the African continent. And I think that's going to be the key determinant of growth. Now, for business, it simply means, as the ones that always come up with solutions and innovations, the question is, how do you position yourself to take advantage of these opportunities that AFTA is creating? So we need to define our own destiny, and this is what AFTA is offering. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate that. Kabelo, closing comments.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I think once again, great platform, great initiative. One has actually tried to prepare, obviously drawing from experience and doing some current research in terms of Africa. But in doing that, I sort of re-educated myself as well. And by obviously presenting, which I would think it's received well, it also makes me relearn what I've been gaining as an experience over the years. I must say as well that, the sessions by Lebo and obviously Eugene, my colleague, they've also been sort of informative. I think overall, great platform. I wish, obviously, Transport Forum the very best because, together we're better, together we can collaborate more. Success, is for those that, plan to hold hands and walk the path together. Thanks, Harry. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Kabelo, for the kind words as well, and thank you for your knowledge sharing. We really appreciate it. The next one on our program was Eugene. Eugene, closing comment.
Harry, thank you. As Kabelo said, thank you very much for the opportunity again to be part of the session. And we live in a world where technology moves very quickly. I encourage people to embrace technology. I think there's very good benefits utilizing technology. I see a lot of positive change, especially in the countries that we are operating in. And I think it's a good time. It's the right time, and the time is now for people to embrace the ability that technology can provide to improve businesses, to make better decisions. With technology, it allows us to understand what's happening, and understanding and having visibility allows us to make better decisions for our businesses, for our personal life. So I encourage people to utilize technology. Thank you, Harry.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Eugene. Appreciate CTRAC support. Thank you so much. Let's have Lebo Letsohalo's closing comments. Thank you, Lebo.
Harry, thank you to yourself and my other colleagues that are part of the discussion. I love Africa, so I know that you have a potential to transform Africa in the global powerhouse that is supposed to be in the future. And understanding the role of supply chain, looking at end-to-end supply chain, very important that we start looking at it. And when I'm speaking of supply chain procurement all the way to logistics, that when we start looking at global integration and really building the Africa that we have, it's very important now we see where the preference should be. And ideally after is really around made in Africa, made by Africans and funded by Africans. And the rest that comes is investments, is partnerships that we can bring on board to be able to support us. I think we've seen an Africa that is really driven by other countries, not ourselves. So there's an opportunity for all of us with our skills, with our capabilities to be part of it. Harry, like I indicated, this conversation will be continuing in person as well with all the other stakeholders. So I really urge the industry to be part of it, the private sector to be part of it, so they are informed and they become part of the solution for Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lebo. Much appreciated. And we're looking forward to future discussions. Ladies and gents, let's give a big hand to our panelists. And we're thanking them very much, also on behalf of the Transport Forum and sponsors for, contributing to this valuable session. I see in the comments chat room here, you guys complimenting the panelists. So thank you very much for that. Ladies and gents, so with this, we're closing the session then for today. I'll keep the session live for another 5 minutes or so. For those of you who still have questions, you can post it in there and we can see if we can link you up afterwards from the chat room. But please take care and we see you again next week. Thank you very much and take care. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you, Harry. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye, Harry. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Bye-bye,
very
everybody.
much
Thank you.
indeed.
Bye, 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 everyone.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Good morning. Sound check, sound check.